Hello, welcome back to Cracking the Cryptic. Well, I'm in a good mood at the moment because I've had a few emails over the last few hours with some amazing looking puzzles attached to them. So I think it's going to be a treat this next week on Cracking the Cryptic. But today, this Twitter poll that I perhaps foolishly instigated has produced a clear winner. You want to see the hidden clone Sudoku from Sam's test in the Grand Prix. Apparently I shouldn't have said in the video where I advertised the poll that I really didn't want you to choose the hidden clone because you all then chose it. So originally the tic-tac-toe was winning, but no, you can see it's a pretty clear majority. So what can we say about this hidden clone before we start with it? Let's have a look at the results from the GP. Here we are. So if we scan down here, yeah, so it's quite interesting. There were a lot of top solvers who have solved 13 of the puzzles and who have scored 505 points out of 600. So the puzzle that they have not solved is the hidden clone. So it's clearly caused trouble even at the very top end of the world ranks. I mean, Teet's time here. I mean, his reckoning, that's 10 points a minute. He's taking less than 10 minutes for the puzzle we're about to try. So let's once we've understood the puzzle and solved it, let's think about that time and think about whether it's mind-blowing or not. I suspect it will be. Where's the puzzle now? Ah, here it is. So this is the hidden clone. How do the rules work? Well, this grey shape in the grid, whatever numbers we put in the grey shape, what numbers? Let's just put some numbers in to illustrate. Whatever numbers these are, this exact sort of shape of numbers, so let's say it went up here like this, would have to appear identically in this one. So you can see actually that shape wouldn't, that's interesting actually, that shape would not have been possible because the two would have shared a box. So we need to reproduce this arrangement exactly as it is here, not reflected, not rotated, somewhere else in the grid. And that's the only rule. Apart from that, it's normal Sudoku. Now, if you want to have a go, and please do, click on the link under the video, and that will take you to our software, and you should see something very similar to what I'm looking at here. And by the way, the Akari video that I did, when did that come out? On Tuesday, I think. That seems to have worked in terms of the software. So do check that video out if you've never tried an Akari puzzle. They are fabulous to do, and we found a way that you guys can actually solve along at the same time, which is, I think, tremendous. And with that, I'm going to have a look at this. Now, I mean, the first thing to say about this is a ridiculous construction. I mean, what have we got here? We've got, I mean, it's ridiculous. We've got 14 given digits and very little interconnection between these digits. So you can see that even where we have digits that are repeated in these two sides, sort of clusters of digits in the top right and bottom left, I mean, these twos, how do they interact? They just don't really. They just don't. Right, okay, so I do think we're going to have to think about this shape. We're going to have to think about the geometry of the grid ab initio and try and understand what it is that what is the restriction that this shape implies. So, how do we do this logically? I mean, there are obvious, I suppose there are obvious orientations of the shape that won't work. So, if we focus on this square just for a moment and we say, is any transformation of the shape that brings it this way possible. And clearly it's not. The same is true of this way. How do I illustrate that? Well, let's imagine that the whole shape just shifted one cell horizontally to the left. What would that then look like? You can see that it would look like this. And why is this not possible? Well, it's because this digit here has to be the same as this digit, so it would repeat in the box and the row. So any lateral shift of the shape is ruled out. And by the same token, I guess any vertical shift is also ruled out. So in fact, I think what I'm going to do is I am going to focus exclusively on this cell and how it can move in the grid. So we now know that this cell here in the transform shape cannot come to any of these cells, and it can't come to any of these cells. And, well, more to the point, it can't come to any cell, obviously, in this box, because it's already in this box, so we can rule out those cells as well. Ah, yeah, okay, so, and that's interesting, because although, that is interesting, because anything that I say is true for this cell is also true for this cell around this symmetry here. So I also can't, yeah, this is very interesting. This is very interesting. So I was just thinking, what happens if I move this square into this box? But the thing is, moving it into this box is not allowed, not because of what happens to this cell, but because of what happens to this cell. And by symmetry, if these cells are not possible, these cells are not possible, because this cell will end up with a repeated digit. Okay, so that is a little bit interesting, isn't it? That is a little bit interesting. Right, okay, so now I think what we've got to think about. Oh, this is fascinating, actually. I'm spotting all sorts of things now. So can this cell, for example, move down to this square here? And the answer's no. And again, it's not because of the effect of this cell. This cell can move here. It wouldn't be in the same row, column, or box as it is originally. But that knight's move of coming from this cell to this cell would break this square here, because this square would come down to here, a knight's move away, where it would share the same 3x3 box. So we can also rule that out. Now, can we go further than that? Can't move it down here. A knight's move. What about... So I'm going to remember we've got these 6 to rule out. And in the central box, well, it's interesting actually, because any shift down this way. So all these are ruled out in term by, because they're too low in the grid. So this, what about this transformation? So why is that not a valid movement of the shape from there to there? What is the problem with that? So you can see this one would be okay. This one is the problem, isn't it? That a knight's move of that one takes it to here. So that's also ruled out. Okay. So we're really running out of room now. We've ruled out all. It can't come laterally this way. It can't come down here. It can't come here. So we're left with transformations that can't come here because there wouldn't be enough room in the grid. So that's ruled out. So it actually has to, if it comes this way, it's got to map onto itself. And if it comes up here, we can rule out this square as the mapping, because that square is a knight's move and that will break this square, so that's not allowed. So we've still got these squares to think about. That one's definitely impossible, because that would, if we try and shift this one to here, it takes this one outside the grid. This one is impossible, because by a knight's move, this one would move to there, be in the same 3x3 block. So we're left with those squares there. That one's ruled out because it's a vertical shift. That one's ruled out because it's outside the grid. Wow, so the only two positions, so we now have locked, this has to shift diagonally either up or down. Good grief. Okay, sorry, that's a very long way of getting to that result, but I wanted to explain that slowly for myself as well as for you guys. But I think I've convinced myself it must move along this diagonal. Now, does it move 1 or 2? Well, it can't move 1, because if I shift this to here, although this cell shift would be fine, this cell shift would not be. This cell would map to this cell, and these would have to be the same digit. So in fact, this cell maps either to here or to here in the finished grid. Wow. Okay, so which way should we go first? Let's go upwards. So we're going to say that this cell is going to map like this. This is going to be our transformed clone. And what does that mean? That means that this digit is the same as this. Oh, right, I see. So that means this digit and this digit are equal to one another. But it doesn't just mean that, because as this clone shape shifts up the grid, this cell will map onto this cell. So actually, these 3 squares are all the same digit. Okay, so that's fascinating, isn't it? So similarly, these 3, right, actually I need different colours here. So let's do some different colours. These digits, colours mean it's the same digit, and we must have the same thing going along there. So we get a very pretty pattern like this. And now can we make progress? Oh, this is so clever. Yes, it is so clever. I mean, sometimes when you solve a puzzle, you just think, I am in the presence of a greater mind here. Because, I mean, not only has Sam had to sort of have the idea, but to execute it like this. Because now, once you know these 3 digits are the same, effectively, they are all subject to massive restrictions now. Because, I mean, look at this square, for example. That square sees these 3 cells, but this one also sees those 4 cells. So actually, the range of possibilities for these 3 cells here is quite limited. So all of the highlighted digits are not possible. So it's got to be a 2, a 5, or a 9. Okay, I'm slightly disappointed that it's still got 3 options, but I think it does. So let's do the same now for these 3 digits. We've got those, that sees that one, those 2, this one sees that one as well, and that one. Okay, I think I've got those highlighted. So what do we see now? We've got, oh, that is much more restricted. That can only be 8 or 9. Let's look at this one. So that's those 3. Dot dot. That one sees the 7. This one sees the 2 and the 1. So it looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 or 9, I think. Oops, did I press 5? Yeah, I did. 5 or 9. And then these ones, see. Imagine doing all of this computation in a test in under 10 minutes and finishing the whole grid as well. Just imagine that. Okay, so that one has to be seeing everything apart from 7, 8 or 9. So we have to remember here that when we're thinking about each of these possibilities, we're not just saying this is 8 or 9. If this is 8, it will be 8, 8. So, for example, so look, we can't have 7 in any of those positions, or in all of those positions, because watch, if that's a 7, that does that. And now I've got to put a 7 here in this box, and there's a 7 there. So that instantly rules out 7 from all of those positions. Oh yes, which gives us an 8, 9 pair, which means this is a 5. So this is a 2 now, because it can't be a 5 or a 9 because there's an 8, 9 in the box. Holy moly. Now this is a 5. Good grief. That's a 2. That's a 2. 2 in one of those squares. 2 in one of these squares. Now, of course, so far I've not figured out why this doesn't work, but it's a bit disconcerting because I'm not sure whether there was a way of me eliminating the shape transforming down there before I started on this path. But there may have been. I tell you what we'll do. If this does work, we'll go back and we'll check why the other way didn't work. Right, hang on. Let me look at this. So 5 here is cool because that rules out a 5 from this square. Now that means there's a 5 locked into row 8 and row 9 in this bottom box here. Now that's nice because it maps with this 5, these 5s here, also in row 8 and row 9. So where does the 5 go in row 7 of the grid? Well, it must be in one of these 3 squares, and actually we know it must be in this one. 7. Three, 4 here locks a 3 and a 4 into those 2 squares. And that's nice with the 6 now. So the 6 now has to be in one of those 3 squares in that box. So it must be in one of these 2 positions in the top left box. That means it's here. And what next? So there must be a 6 and a 7 in those 3 squares, because we know this one isn't 7. So now there's a 7 in one of those 2 positions, 7 in one of these 2 positions. 1s are in one of those 2 squares, 7s are in one of those 2 squares. Similar thing going on down at the bottom there, look. No, hang on. Oh, hang on, yeah, look at this. This square and this square, they are a 6, 7 pair because look, we've got 8s and 9s aligned in column 4 and column 6. And in this box, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. So these 2 squares are in fact the 6 and the 7. Let's remove the other pencil marking. So this square is an 8 or a 9 to complete the box. Now, is that enough to give us anything useful? 8, 9. Maybe, but I'm still not quite. Hang on. We can do more work with the 8s. Look. So we've got 8s here and here and here and here. So that's an 8. Locks an 8 over there. And 9s are also restricted. So this has to be a 9, which looks a 9 over there. And a 9 down here. Must be a 4 in one of these two squares now because of the 4 in this position. And okay, so I'm sort of making slow progress. Certainly not crushing this though. We can put another 8 in the grid because of this 8-9 pair here. We've got a similar thing to the logic I explained down there with the 5s. 8s are locked into one of those 3 squares because they can't be here. And that marries up with the 8s there, look. So now, down in this box, the 8 must be in one of those 2 squares. 5s, 2s, 7, 8, 9, 7, 6s. What's the next step that we need to find here? So up here in this box, we've yet to pencil mark 1s, 3s and 4s. Oh, so that square sees a 3 and a 4, look. Has that just been sitting there the whole time? Yes, it has. This is a 1. Oh, that's important, look. That's going to give us a 1 and a 7 there, which means this is an 8-9 pair. This must be a 3 or a 4. 7s can be pencil marked at the bottom now. And can we get any further from this logic? So we've got the 8-9 pair here, the 8-9 pair here. The 7 is resolved. This square must be a 3 or a 4. Still can be either, I think. If we look down this column and ask where a 1 can go now, it must go here. So this square is a 3 or a 4. These squares down here have got to be, well, the 3 is very useful now, isn't it? Because that's going to give us a 3, a 9, and hopefully a 5. And that locks a 5 here, look. Wow, so now we might be starting to cook with gas. 4, 3, 4, 3, 4. Now, does this, we've got 3s, the 5s are resolved now. Does the 3 do anything? Yes, the 3s are resolved now. That locks 3 into one of those 2 squares. What a puzzle. How do you get this puzzle done in under 10 minutes? How do you get it done in under 10 minutes? It's absurd. Anyway, I mustn't get distracted by that thought because it's upsetting me. There's 3, 6 and 7 here, so this can't be a 7. We can't get any further restriction here. We still don't know which way round these 8s and 9s go. As soon as I can get one of them, I can get all of them. So maybe I should focus harder on trying to do that. Yeah, look, we've got an 8-9 pair here that sees 8s pencil marked. So maybe I can get an 8 into that square. Is that going to be enough? No. 6 and 7. This square here has to be a 3 or a 4. 6 and 7. 3's here. feel like I'm in one of those situations where I've almost got too many pencil marks now. We've got 1, 4, 6. Where does a 1 go in column 4? Look, these two squares can't be 1. In fact, a better way of looking at that might be to say those allow me to pencil mark 1s here. So this square has to be a 1, which that gives me a 1, 2 pair over here. Look, so I've managed to pencil mark the same digit into 2 squares. This one can no longer be a 3, so the 3 must be here. 3, 1, 2. So these squares have got to be 4, 6, and 9, and you can see the 4s are pincering those 2 squares. So this one has to be the 4, which gives us the 9 and gives us the 6. Now, 6 allows us to tidy up this square. These 2 squares form a 3, 7 pair in the row, which is resolved by that 3. So finally we get a bit more done. This square here, that's got to be a 3, I think. And these 2 squares here have got to be 4 and 6. Which is still not resolved. I don't believe it. How can that not be resolved yet? These squares have got to be 7, 8, and 9. These squares have therefore got to be 1, 2, 4, and 6. The 6 is forced to be here. 1, 2, 4 into the gaps. That again, the 4s are pincering. Look, the 4s are operating on these 3 open squares and forcing 4, 2, and 1 like that, which gives us the 1 and the 2 as well. Now this has to be a 1. This can't be a 9. This is a 7 or an 8. I keep coming back to the coloured squares thinking I must have got them now, and I still haven't. But now now I might have, because now at least I've got another 9 in the grid. This square here has to be a 9, look, because we need a 7 and a 9 for the row, and there's a 7 here. So we can go 9, 7, 8, 9. Look. Now, last, I know what this digit is. Now, the moment I get this digit, I'm going to take advantage of the logic and fill 8s up there and 9s back the other way, just to show I've understood the puzzle. And now that's a 7, which gives us 6, 7. These 2 squares have got to be 4 and 6 as usual, so that is resolvable now. So that's a 6 and that's a 4. This is an 8. This is an 8. This is a 9. Now, I think, let's check. Yes, that is the solution to the puzzle. So I am just briefly, how am I going to do this? I'm going to pause while I unwind the puzzle to the very beginning, and we're going to prove that the other way didn't work. What a puzzle. Right, 1 second. Okay, so it would have been very simple to prove it the other way round. So what I've done is I've labelled the squares up and highlighted them by reference to what they can be, using exactly the same technique we did the other way. So if we have a look down at this box, for example, you see we have an 8, 9 pair and a 5, 9 pair. So there's far too many 9s in this box. So we could immediately actually have ruled this out as the other option. So we would have known then for certain we were working on the right iteration when we shifted the clone up to the top left. What a puzzle that is. What a puzzle. I am lost in admiration for Teat and the others who solved this puzzle under exam conditions so fast. And for Sam, of course, for creating what is an absolute work of art. Amazing. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments, and we'll be back soon. Well, in fact, tomorrow with another edition of Cracking the Cryptic.